Hi, I'm Mara Lee Durrell. I just had a conversation with Kim Sorrelle on the Love Is podcast. This was so fun because we got to explore both our universality and humanitarian needs as both ourselves and individuals, but also what every child and every family needs around the world. So please tune in, listen, and get in touch.
Welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here. You are going to be so happy you're here. I'm Kim Sorrelle. I am a speaker, I'm an author. I get to do so many fun things in life, but my favorite thing to do by far is to meet people. And I get to meet some of the world's most extraordinary human beings. And today, not only am I with an extraordinary human being, but she happens to be a friend of mine. And we've become friends over the last little while. And I have so much admiration for this woman. You're going to be blown away. The things that she's done in life, but what she's doing now in helping people, helping kids in trauma. You think about that. How many organizations do you know that really focus on helping kids in some of the worn, torn areas of our world, some of the toughest places, helping kids to have a life, helping them to get through their trauma? Oh my gosh, I admire this woman like none other. And I am so thrilled she's here. Mara, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be with you, Kim. This is such a pleasure. I've become a fan of your show, and all of the love that you are putting into the world. And so I'm really excited to be here and talk through our story and what we're doing to help kids bring that energy into the world as well.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. That's so sweet. And yeah, I'm so excited that you're here. So, Mara, before we get into all that you're doing, I really want people to get to know you. So, I would like to hear about 8-year-old Mara.
Oh, yes. 8-year-old Mara grew up in a small town with two sisters. And I think back about my childhood really fondly. And I think that it's been a really important motivator for me because I had safe and secure relationship with my parents. I was really close with my sisters. I was of that generation in the US where I could get on my bike and, ride to my neighbor's house and just feel really secure in my little world, right? In with my neighbors, my friends, my schoolmates. I think I was always a child who wanted to try new things, like try new activities and sports. And, later in life, that's led to travel and really exploring the world. But yeah, I think I've always kind of just had an open mind. And that's something I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, no kidding. I love your story because so often I hear people's stories and it's, oh, I had this abuse and this tragic and this horrible and this whatever. And sometimes that does motivate people into greatness, right?
Yeah.
But man, if you can avoid all that and still achieve greatness, all the better. Like I had your childhood, riding my bike to my friends' houses, and friends were in my neighborhood and hanging out and the sports and all the stuff. And so I love hearing that there are families that do it right, that give their kids this incredible chance at a great childhood. And so I love it. We share a childhood. I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
And when
Yeah, and
you,
it's
yeah,
and it's really what childhood should be, right?
yes, a
So
hundred percent.
yeah, there's because yeah, as you said, it's like it's not the norm, and so I think if you've had it, it's to be really grateful and appreciative, and then also like how do we play that forward, right? How do we give back? Because it's something that's we're pretty lucky to have had.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. That's so true. So when you were a kid and you used to daydream about adulthood, like where did you see yourself doing something in particular? Did you have some dream?
Oh yeah, that's such an interesting question because I have two young kids right now, and so I think about this a lot in terms, sometimes they'll be interested in a certain thing. I'm like, oh, is that going to be what they're going to do later? And my personal experience, I think like many of us is like it changed a lot. So honestly, at 8 years old, I wanted to be a marine biologist. And I'm doing something pretty far from that right now.
Yes.
but pretty early on, I got interested in leadership, and that started with student government, and then ultimately that led me to politics, and governance, and was always really interested in kind of big questions around citizenship and individual responsibility and collective responsibility. And so, yeah, so, I think one thing for me that's been true is like you never know what the next door will be, but again, it's whatever you're doing now is preparing you for the next thing. And so I don't know that I had that hindsight back when I was thinking about what I would have been in life. But when I look back on it, I can see how one thing led to another.
Yeah, that's so interesting how that works in life.
Right.
And it is almost being on the other end of it and looking back and going, oh, now I know the benefit of that job I hated, or
Right.
now I know why I went through that. Yeah, so
Right.
it
Or
is.
having the bad boss, right? That makes you want to be a good boss. And in the time it was really painful, but now I've taken that with me, right? And so yeah, so it is fun to have that I guess retrospective view.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So yeah, so you graduated from high school, you went to college, poli sci major. I
Hmm.
was a poli sci major for the time that I was in college and
Yeah.
uh loved it. I loved it. Everything about government, everything about politics. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I'm in kind of a different place now in that because we've become so polarized, and I just think we should all be united and love each other, that I've gotten away from being excited about politics, I have to
Yeah.
say. I don't know, is that changed for you at all?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think so many of us are. I think what feels really divisive and polarizing right now, people having to choose a side, and then it's like you're on a team and you somehow think less of people who are on the other team. Doesn't really matter what team you associate with. Yeah, it just feels very tribal, and petty, to be honest. And so I think where I have, gone in my career, so, from high school and studying politics, and then in college, and then working in politics for many, many years, and actually teaching politics at a university, and in terms of how Republicans and Democrats used to work together, and that was a big part of my role. Um, and I learned so much. And again, that's really brought me to where I am right now. Um, I think the thing that I value the most around politics is the organizing piece and the action. And people can feel part of something bigger, and they can really feel motivated, and they can feel so passionate. So that piece I still love. I'm still very much attracted to the organizing piece of that, and the power and the potential and like what it brings out in us in a positive way. Um, but yes, I do think, we all kind of need to take a deep breath and tone it down a notch, when we're engaging with other, I have many family members who have very different views than I do. And we can agree or disagree, right? But we're family, and there's a value in that we really prioritize over any other disagreement. And I think those types of conversations are actually important for every family to have.
Mhm. Yes, yes. Well, and being open and listening to each other and realizing that you're not the label.
Right.
Like so often we want to say they,
Right.
well, nobody's a they. I mean,
It's
politically,
we.
whatever, right? I mean, it's we're, you're Mara, I'm Kim.
Yeah.
But we put labels on people, and then based on their labels, we have judgments. And then based on those judgments, we hate them or we love them, either way we're
Right.
like-minded or we're opposite-minded or whatever, but labels are never meant to be who somebody is. You might belong to a club, right? You might belong to a group, you might belong to a sorority, a political party, whatever, but that shouldn't define who you are as a person,
Right.
because there is no club that is everything, that defines who a person is entirely. So
Yeah, for
you
sure.
should only be defined by yourself, by
Right.
each individual. And so tear down those labels, take those labels away, and recognize people for people, and then your family will get along. Everyone will get along.
Right,
So much
exactly.
better.
And I think we see this domestically, of course, in the United States right now. We also see it internationally. And one of the things that I've really realized, right, is that it's also it's essentially baked into any of the conflicts that are happening around the world. Right? This notion of othering, this notion of them, as you said. Um, and there is no them, right? It is we. Like it's just it's individuals, and we can have identities, and we can have grievances, which are very legitimate, and we can have differences of opinion. There's kind of a whole gradient of the severity of these, um, but we are people, right? And when we can bring out and remember the humanity, and this is something we're doing a lot now with children, is really recognizing the humanity in each other. That's where there's so much potential, right? That's where the breakthroughs can come from individually, collectively, as a society. Is really, if we refocus and reframe it, everything becomes possible. And one of the things I really valued in my political science and conflict resolution studies and then work was recognizing that some of the hardest conflicts in the world, everyone said it's impossible, it will never be solved until it was solved, right?
Mm.
There were people, I should say, not just someone, there were people who were behind the scenes essentially saying this conflict is not good for anyone. And actually, we're all hurting. And we're all being taken down by it. And what could this look like if we break the impasse? And so, North Ireland, I mean, there's so many where, again, everyone thought it was impossible until it was done. And that's a really, I think, North Star for me and for many of us working in the international space.
Yeah, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. And I think too, so often everything looks so big that,
Yeah.
like you said, it's impossible because it's so large. Like, how
Yeah.
can you ever turn this boat around? How can things ever shift? But they do shift. Things
Right.
can shift over time. And it can be one person starting an initiative, one person
Right.
speaking out and saying, I don't want it to be like this anymore.
Right.
It's amazing what can happen, that anybody can do. Like, we all have power to do something in life, and we should all do something, whatever it is, wherever our passions lie. And so
Right.
I love that you just said that. That was so good because it's so
Yeah.
true. So
Yeah.
talking about international travel and having more of a worldview, right? Like, I know people who've never left a state or never left the country, and things change dramatically when you travel, when you have the opportunity. And nowadays, you can kind of travel by watching YouTube. I mean,
Yeah.
there are channels on TV that
Yeah.
you can get a taste for another
Yeah.
country. But if you're able to travel, like, it just changes everything because you're immersed in it. The sights, the smells, the sounds, the feelings, the everything about a place. And there's lots of great places to travel on vacation, but you travel to some of the toughest places in the world, not the vacation spots, not
Right.
necessarily the vacation hot spots. And that gives a whole different perspective. And so, and I know you lived in Israel for a while, right?
I did. Yeah. And also in Jordan
Oh, in Jordan. Oh, I love Jordan.
and in China. Yeah. So,
Nice. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
very different places.
Very different places. And so living there too is so much different than just going. So
Yes.
you've got this knowledge, this experience that few people have, that leads you to everything that you believe and everything that you want to accomplish and are doing in life. Because every day leads you to today, right? So all your
Mhm.
opinions, all your everything is formed based on your knowledge from yesterday and the past and whatever you learned today, I guess. But so living in different places, being that close to different cultures, and then being in some of the toughest places in the world, how do you think that has changed you?
I appreciate this question so much. And I know, Kim, this is something you and I share, right? Both in terms of, I think, the love and appreciation and gratitude for the ability to have those experiences. And know that you too, right, have been to Haiti, which is one of the places that I work now, and I can talk more about that. Um, but yeah, I think, growing up again in a small town, right? I think it's like your world becomes smaller. And for many people, that feels very safe, right? And they kind of don't want to break that that safety and that bubble, and maybe there's not the curiosity there. But I think actually all of us somewhere have that curiosity. And I think it feels scary and it can feel risky to go out of our comfort zones. We know that in every context. But the international travel, I think when you do it, and certainly going to places that are, you know, certainly conflict zones, and people would say like, why would you travel there? Is it safe? Or what are you thinking? Especially I'm a mother, I have two kids at home. Like what, why would you go there? Why would you put this all at risk? And it's people are living there every single day. They are not, it's not like an active frontline war zone in most places. People are living and trying to get by and provide for their families and send their kids to school. And yes, also there is this conflict going on. And so I think what you understand is like you see resiliency, you see hope, you see how people are just making it work. And I think what would feel really hard for me or for, people that, um, frankly, I think growing up in the United States, we have a lot of privilege and a lot of luxury here, and the standards and norms are relatively high, right? And what people expect their schools to be like with running water and electricity and, flushing toilets and, secure walls and walls and floors. I mean, even just these very basic things that we expect and as normal are not the norm everywhere. So I think there's a lot of humility that certainly I have and I have gained and continue to be humbled by when I'm traveling. Um, and again, I think there's also just this, you learn so much about the human spirit when you see people who, again, are just navigating this adversity day by day. And I mean, I'm sure you saw this. Like, I know that you saw this in Haiti, and if you've been to Jordan, I mean, Arab hospitality is famous worldwide. And it will be the Bedouin who is living out of a tent, and they're the person who is offering you tea or coffee and food and giving to you and saying, here's some fresh vegetables from the garden. And they're so giving and so welcoming and so warm and so open. And so the modeling that happens also, again, is really it's really pretty beautiful to witness. And so for me, I am grateful that I've had these experiences because it's made my world so much bigger and so much richer. And that's something I would wish for everyone, whether it's on YouTube or through a book or, again, but it's how do we open our world and actually really live in it and really embrace it. And that's something we all need to remember to do.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love the way you put that. And it's so true. Different cultures, there's so much beauty in the world culturally
Yes.
that is just kind of ingrained in societies, right? And in different places. And yes, like the hospitality, the generosity, whatever it happens to be, it's so interesting to see how other people live, why they live the way they do, what makes them who they are. I just find all of that so fascinating. And I think too, one of the things that you learn quickly is what we already talked about is that people are people all over the world.
Yeah.
So it's not Jordanians and Chinese and whatever. It's their name,
Yeah.
Ahmad and Charlene and whoever,
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
people are people all over the world. And yeah, we're raised in different cultures, we're raised in different climates and different areas, but we all have a mom and a dad. We're all related to somebody somewhere. We're
Yeah.
all a friend. We have so much more in common than we have different from each other.
Right.
And that's so unifying, I
Right.
believe, when you see that.
Yeah, and this is something I've honestly I've loved to hear, um, because in Israel or in many friends in the United States will say, my values are informed by my Jewish values, and my Muslim friends will say my values are informed by my Islamic faith, and everywhere you go in the world, right? It's like there's these values that are really strong, that are really embedded. Often they can be from faith or society or culture, family, right? And there's there's this real belief, right, that it's like essentially we have these values and that makes us who we are and kind of gives us a code to live by, right? And what's beautiful is there's so much universality among those values, right? The Venn diagrams, right, in terms of like if you put all these things together, it's actually there's so much more in common than difference. And we focus on the difference. Certainly our media focuses on the difference, right? We're kind of taught about the difference. Part of human nature is, we see this in early childhood development, is part of the way we understand the world is looking at things and saying, okay, this is similar and this is different. And we start to label and match things in our brain in order to make sense of the world. And we don't actually give that up as we grow up. But when we, kind of again have that perspective or have that step back, the Venn diagram, we see what's in common. Those values are so clear and so strong. And I think that's where, again, everyone can kind of sign up to ascribe and say, oh, actually, these are values, right? I want to, live by my word. I want to be a person of my word, right? I want someone to be someone that someone can trust. I want to show up for other people, right? I want to obviously do good in the world. I want to give back. I want to, lead by example. All these things that people kind of aspirationally want to do, and they're all the same. And so that's just been, I think for me, this just real affirmation in humanity that again, um, we're taught about the difference, but there's just so much more similarity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, everybody wants the best for their family and the
Right.
best for their life. And
Yep.
yes, and everybody needs to eat every day and need
Yep.
a roof over their head and needs
Yep.
clothes and education. And unfortunately, there's so many places in the world that some of that stuff just doesn't exist.
Yep.
And so it's always a bit of a conflict in my mind that uh, when I think of anything that I have, I am so grateful because you see people with nothing who are also so grateful.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Yeah,
And
it's
the
amazing.
gratitude is really key because again, um, that's what keeps us grounded, right? That keeps us human, that offers hope. And and again, we're all sharing what we have. Right? We're sharing with like we'll always share with our neighbor, we'll always share with our friend, we'll share with a family member in trouble, right? We'll provide for our children, of course, right? That I mean that's a basic, right, that everyone is doing and striving for, and we'll do almost anything to do. And so there's yeah, again, and I think just, I'm thinking a lot about, just your entire podcast and everything that you talk about, right? It's just, again, it's this gratitude and love and like, how do we show up in the world and how do we put out this into the world? And as much as we put out, we also receive. And so there is, a lot around mindset and modeling and how we treat each other. And that is someone one of my colleagues actually said this, and I love it because I run Rise Alliance for Children, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure. But um, we are working in the early childhood and education space, and she said, in some ways, everything you've ever needed to know, you've learned in kindergarten.
Mm,
And I was like, it's so simple, but it's actually quite profound, right? Because you do learn how to treat each other, how to share, you find your voice, right? You like play, you can learn how to play individually, play with someone else, play as a group. You learn choice and agency. Um, and there's these like very simple kind of how do we all show up in the world? How do we want to be? Who do we want to be? The really actually we learn by kindergarten. And so if we come back to that, it doesn't feel so hard.
yeah, that's so interesting. That's so interesting. And so that is profound, actually. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Rise because
Yeah.
it is an incredible organization and uh, the values, the things that Rise is accomplishing and wants to accomplish, I am amazed by. I love your organization. How did you get into Rise, first of all?
Thank you. So the quick kind of backstory in terms of my professional experience is, we talked about politics and so I worked in politics many years and I was trained as an organizer. So it's really this is the part I love is working with people, right? And really again thinking of like what is the power that we as a community can do and as a group come together. So I did that for many years, worked in Congress, had the immense pleasure and honor of serving in the Obama administration. Got to live abroad and do international development and conflict resolution work, and ran an organization doing that for 10 years, specifically in the Middle East and specifically focusing on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So talk about high tension and stress. And I mean, this was, yeah, kind of one of the hardest things, of course, I will ever do, and for the people who are living there. Um, and in that experience, I really saw the the day-to-day impact of what a political conflict was having on families and their children. And I would be with my colleagues, and I would, we would have meetings, and we would, be set to arrive at 9 a.m. And the amount of stress and the amount of baggage that they were carrying to get their kids to school, to navigate certain, pieces, they would spend hours just trying to even arrive at the office. And so by the time they arrived, like again, the weight and the stress and the emotion that they would carry, um, and certain things I would notice, like they would always look at their phone. Like if someone called, they would always take the phone call, which I was finding distracting, right? I would think like, oh, let's focus or, let's be in the moment. And it's because it might be their child or it might be the school. Like they always had in the back of their mind that the worst possible thing could happen.
Mm.
And after working with them for Israelis and Palestinians for 10 years and feeling this weight and feeling this stress and seeing how it impacted children and families, I really felt called to do something, and to, figure out a way like, how can I help these children and these families? I'm not going to be able to erase the conflict, right? I'm not going to be able to remove what's happening, but we can help children and families navigate adversity, and we can help them build resilience. And there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of tools and a lot of skills that we as humans can actually build to help navigate that adversity, and to maintain our humanity no matter what happens. And so for me, there was this, I think kind of real personal reckoning of wanting to do more to support youth and families and children, and also at an earlier age. So, not trying to just help them later, and process the trauma that they've gone through, but to actually help them earlier to be able to process the trauma that they might go through. And so, it's really kind of my own personal theory of change was like to have the earliest possible impact to help children and families navigate this. So again, my background is in politics and organizing and community building, and so that's what I really bring to the nonprofit. But Rise Alliance for Children, which is a relatively new name, but we've actually been around for nearly 30 years, has been working to help the most marginalized children for 3 decades. And it has worked in some of the toughest places. Yes, the Middle East, and now Ukraine and Haiti, and Ethiopia and Vietnam and Bulgaria through the orphanage crisis. We've worked through the HIV crisis and the orphanage and orphan crisis and the HIV crisis and how they compounded. So there was a ton of knowledge, a ton of learning, and a ton of lessons that the organization has really built up by being in the field. And so I feel really honored to now lead this organization, as we grow, and as we really bring a lot of these lessons to more and more children. We have a pretty ambitious and audacious goal to reach 1 million children and help transform their lives, over 10 years. So by 2034, that's where we're going. It's fivefold growth for the organization. We're well on our way, and it just feels I couldn't feel more passionate about, again, bringing these skills and toolkits, to the kids and families that need it most.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's amazing. It's so hard for me to think about my kids being raised in an area where war is at their back door,
Right.
or at any point in time, someone could step on a landmine and the phone call that interrupts the meeting is somebody has been killed, or
Right.
somebody is in the hospital in deep trouble, or
Right.
whatever, or someone's
Right.
been
Right.
kidnapped. Or, I mean, it's not things that our kids in the US live with every day. But in some countries, it's what people live with every single day. Like you talk about the heaviness that they go into the office with, the heaviness that they go into a classroom with, both
Exactly.
teachers and students.
Yeah.
And but to them it's normal, but yet if it's trauma for you, it's going to be trauma for them. I mean, just because it's their life doesn't mean it's right, and doesn't mean it doesn't affect them.
I appreciate you saying that so much. I mean, I literally like got chills in my body when you said that because it's not normal and it should never be normal,
Mhm.
right? It is the reality, but it is not okay. And so I appreciate that so much because, again, and again, it was, kind of at first colleagues and then became really deep friends and then knowing their children. Um, and you're like, how did that happen to Talia? Like Talia was, um, literally sprayed with, you know, uh, I'm forgetting the words, but the gas, right? That they used to disrupt crowd. She was 9. She had nothing to. I mean, she's the sweetest girl in the whole world. She has so much potential, and she was, exposed to this violence, and for me, it was heart-wrenching, but it also made me mad, right? It
Mhm.
was more than like, I feel sad or this shouldn't happen. It's like, this should not ever be allowed to happen, right? Children should never witness this kind of violence. They should never be exposed to violence. And we, as the adults around them, need to take responsibility and do something. And again, yes, it's hard we can't end all wars tomorrow and we can't resolve all conflicts tomorrow. And the meta politics are really difficult. And it is easier to kind of say, oh, I wish I could help, but I can't. But actually, we can. Right. And this is where, for me, it's been so empowering to be like, actually, we can work directly with the children and families who are being affected and give them exactly what they need, which are these skills, are the learning goals to help really ensure that they're getting what they need academically, which leads to economic opportunity, which leads to pass out of poverty. Like there are very clear, concrete things that we can do to help people so that this is not normal.
Yeah, so true. So true. And I love it that there are things that can be done.
Yes.
Because, like you said, it can be easy to sit back. Oh my gosh, this is too big of a problem. There's really nothing. I feel bad, but there's nothing we can do when it's not true. There are things that can be done. And I love it that you are at the entry level of it, right? Trying to help before the conflict happens, trying to help before the trauma happens and how to cope and whatever. So you've got a very specific way of doing it. And
Yeah.
how did that develop? And tell us more about that.
Yeah. Thank you. Um, you know, the program really started, so it's founded by a really well-known and well-respected pediatrician, Dr. Jane Aronson, who in the 80s and the 90s was really helping to work to help the most marginalized children around the world. Um, Very much, kind of coming through the institutionalization of children, right, without families, so in orphanages and other institutional settings where children were not getting what they needed, both from like the most primary early childhood development. So, again, I think we all have those images and we've seen, the Dateline, news stories where it's literally just, hundreds of cribs, children crying, no one is holding them, right? The adults all have masks. It's very institutionalized, it's very medicalized. The children were really seen as like patients, right? They were not seen as children. They were not being held. And what we know about early childhood development, and of course, I think all parents and grandparents and anyone who has really spent time with young children knows, is like a children needs to be held. and they can't regulate their own nervous system. They have to co-regulate with an adult that they trust. And a baby can trust an adult very early because of that, just that proximity and that safety and that warmth that they give. All the neurons in their brain are signaling this adult is safe and I am safe. And that's when they can calm down, right? And so even from like our most basic human needs, right? When they were not being met, the organization was really founded to say, let's go in and actually really work with the adults to change the way that they perceive their job,
Mm.
because their job is not just to keep the children safe. The children also need to feel safe. And if a child does not feel safe, they cannot learn. And if a child cannot learn, they will never stay in school. They will go out into the streets and they become very vulnerable very quickly. And so the intervention really happened again, understanding that children need safe and secure adults, and not every child has that at home. And so the intervention is really at the school. That's where we find, highest need young children is enrollment has really increased around the world. In Ethiopia, for example, in 2010, enrollment was 5% in pre-primary schools. Now it's more than 50%. So children are going to school, but attendance is not enough. We need to ensure that the quality is there. And again, that when a child walks into school, they feel safe, they are safe, and their nervous system can calm down to the point where then they can learn. And so that, both the inception story of this organization, the knowledge, um, I think just taking really the best of what we know and from early childhood development. We have speech language pathologists and psychologists, pediatricians who have all come together to really co-develop and co-design this with our partners in the field to really meet their needs and again ensure that the adults are providing exactly what a child needs to be able to learn and ultimately to be able to thrive in their lives. So that's the origin story, and again, it's all been co-designed with local teams on the ground. It's all of our programs in 9 different countries are locally led, and that leadership and that insight and that knowledge all comes from the folks on the ground who really want to help their communities.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Yeah, because it was horrifying. I'm sure a lot of people remember seeing the Dateline, the 16 Minutes,
Exactly.
the the carts with babies just stacked,
Right?
basically, and no human touch and nothing happening in their life besides they
Yeah.
get to eat and their
Yeah.
diaper change sometimes or whatever. And that was like it. And then the effect that it's had on them, there's so many adults that's what they experienced in their childhood who are not functioning adults,
No.
who are in horrible systems, who are trafficked, who are living on the streets, not able to cope in
Mm.
society because of way back when,
Right?
because of the lack of physical touch.
Right?
And it's amazing how simple that seems or how little that seems, but
Right.
what a huge, huge effect it has on people. And then it's great. 50% compared to 5%, that's huge. And in this amount of years for Ethiopia, that's so fabulous. 100% would be great. But
Exactly.
they're in
Right?
school, but you're absolutely right. Just being in school doesn't assure that you're going to get an education, that you're going to be able to get the skills that you need to really cope. And so it has to be more than that.
Yeah.
And I know so many countries where I know so many people that have a passion for kids, want to start a school like in Haiti and Ethiopia, wherever, want to give kids the opportunity to go to school, but then don't have the resources to know what to do with the kids once they're in the classroom. And so for your organization to step in that way and also knowing where the kids have come from, it's
Exactly.
so huge.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned that because I've been thinking a lot, since joining the organization a few years ago about really, both like how do we, we're on this ambitious plan, as I mentioned, to, help transform the lives of 1 million children, and to really grow, because we're trying to meet the need. right? And there's so much need out there. And one of the things that we've really developed is also, in addition to working with local partners, we're also working with, private schools and, as schools that have been built, but they don't yet have, maybe they want to do play-based learning because they've really understood that's how children learn best. They want to bring in trauma-informed practices, but they don't really know how to do it. And so in addition to all of the programs that we have started and run, and we have local teams running around the world, we're increasingly also working with partners who are already working with children, but really want to upskill their ability to to deliver for their children. And so this is off for us. Typically we'll work with government schools. Again, this is where the highest need children are around the world, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, but also in other places. But that opening has again really allowed us to help anyone who's working with children, to make sure they have the skills, they have the knowledge, they have the toolkit to ensure that their children are meeting their learning goals, are hitting their developmental milestones. And we've seen, I mean, this for me coming to the organization, this was mind blowing that in a classroom that we are in versus a classroom that we are not, the children in our classroom are 3 times more likely to be ready for school, and then 3 times more likely to succeed once they get there.
Mm,
First grade worldwide is the biggest predictor of both future academic and economic success. So if there is a pathway out of poverty, it is through education. And so the quality again of that education matters so much, because if a child is, as we said, not able to learn, not able to sit still, is really going through trauma and not able to hear the teacher, just not engaged in their own learning, and they don't have that support at home, it is a fail fast or fail later situation. That child will not thrive. They are not set up to succeed in any way. And so for us, what we've realized is, the best and most efficient thing we can do again is really work at the school. So while we can't control what's happening at home, we can create that safe environment at school. We can ensure that we have the adults around them. um, and again, just one of the things I've realized from the organization is the one thing that a child needs to be able to thrive, basic needs for sure, right? Like they need to be able to eat, they need to be able to safe, they need, again, they need to be safe, they need to feel safe, obviously. They need to have shelter, right? Our most basic needs, and one adult. A child needs one adult in their life to essentially be rooting for them. It doesn't have to be a parent. It can be an aunt, a grandparent, and if we think of so many of us, right? If we think of, who was that person for us? Did we have that? And if we didn't have that, what did that mean for us later on? Right. And so we are providing that one person for every child in the countries that we are working, so that
mm,
every child has someone who is rooting for them, is invested in their success, sees them as a human, right? Not just as, oh, you're one of my 57 students who walks into the classroom, or 100 students who's walked in today. It's Kim. I am so glad you're here today. I really would have missed you if you weren't here. Come, sit down, and then we'll do a welcome circle, and we'll greet everyone by name, and we'll really see every child. And again, what we see is just the children's nervous system. I mean, you just see it in the classroom, just like if someone gives you a warm hug, right? And you see an old friend, like, and you just instantly relax. That's what happens with children. And then that's when the learning can come. But
mm,
without that, we're never going to get there.
mm. Oh my word. Wow, that's so powerful. Yeah, that is so powerful. I mean,
You
for kids to feel seen.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that you do the welcome circles, and I want to get into the play-based learning too.
yeah,
I love that you work with local partners. You work with people who understand the culture, know the language,
for sure.
understand where kids are coming from. So often I think as Americans in particular, I've personally witnessed, I'm sure you have too, organizations that go in and it's like, well, we're American, we know how to do it better. So
Right.
we're going to do it our way. We're going to show you how to do it our way.
Yes.
And nothing could be more detrimental. I mean, the best thing you can do is say, we're here to serve you. So you understand the culture, you understand the need. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it and let's work within your parameters in your country and what's happening in your world. Not what we think is happening in your world, but what's actually happening in their world. So
Right.
I love it that you do that. How
Yeah, and I think
important do you think that is?
yeah, I mean, again, coming into the organization relatively new. So, again, I want to give a lot of credit to the leadership and the staff and the board who've really built this, together with the local team. So every team is local leadership, as I said. So the country directors, right? Which often in international organizations, it might be an American who's living in Kenya or in, Vietnam. No, it's Ethiopians, it's Vietnamese, it's Bulgarians, it's Ukrainians, like it's Haitians, like everyone owns everything that we do. We can talk more about this, but we actually are also in the United States. We're in New York and we're in Baltimore, again, high need areas that are really experiencing a lot of for sure poverty and also violence. Um, all of those programs are also locally led. And so it is so embedded in the organization. It has always been true. Localization is a term that is very popular and very kind of trending right now within international development, which is a good thing. But this organization has been doing it for 30 years, and I think has really, we're this mix of a very grassroots organization, right? Where again, the leadership is on the ground and that's where a lot of the innovation is happening. And also an international organization where we're able to bring in international resources and again, kind of pull from the science around early childhood development and really navigate those things. And then the meeting of the middle is where we get this really low cost, high impact programming, right? That we're really able to help as many children as possible by combining these, kind of the knowledge with all of the different teams. But yeah, I think, I'm thinking a lot about what you said. When a friend recently shared a story with me, there was an international organization very well known. Um, they were in Central America, and they essentially were doing a session with children, and they asked children to essentially name their fears. And the idea was that they could name their fears. Then, once you name something, you can process it and it becomes not so scary, right? It's not just you and you're holding it, but if you name it, and so the intentions were really good. But there was zero cultural awareness because in that culture, if you talk about your nightmares, the story is that they come true.
Mm-hmm.
And so the children were literally shaking and frightened because they didn't want to share. They didn't want to name this. That was even scarier than the nightmare. Was and then somehow they were like willing it to come true. And so we can't go into countries and prescribe programming or solutions. Everything has to be co-designed, right? We have these skills and tools and, um, I really think of it as tools, right? And toolkits and things that people can take and adapt, but everything is in the local language. We are doing music with children and movement breaks, and all the music is local, all the books are local, everything is celebrating the local heritage. Like that's what makes it work. That's the magic is that it is authentic and it's real. And so if I arrive, like they have no idea who I am, I'm just a woman watching them play or on the ground, playing with the kids. It's not an American program and it's not mine, it's theirs. And for me, that again, I think the organization had a lot of um, really good insights on that early on. And it's something that I think is a huge strength for us and really every organization should be doing.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Every organization should be doing for sure. and put away the ego and
Yeah.
the arrogance and think that somehow we know better and we know the need more or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It
Yeah. And
makes so
actually,
much more sense to work with people in their own country
yes.
that understand people
Yeah.
in their own
Yeah.
country. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking too, is the programming I mentioned in the United States is actually relatively new. And actually what's been really fun is to be like, oh, there's all these amazing insights and techniques that teachers around the world have developed, right? These amazing lesson plans or again, just innovations or techniques to kind of get a child's attention and or transition from one activity to another. And we now are bringing that back to the United States, right? It was originated elsewhere and is bringing, but and the feedback that we're getting from teachers in the Bronx or teachers in Baltimore are like, this is such a really helpful tool because the way I was taught was very formal, was very structured, right? And it kind of didn't have those transition times. So if a child is playing with one thing and you say, okay, it's time to end, right? The bell's ringing, of course the child is like not ready for that, right? We haven't actually prepared them to go to the next activity. And so there's just all these tools that we can use that help the teachers really create the flow of the day. The students can anticipate that flow of the day. Again, it's structure, it's routine, it's normal, it's calming. They know what to expect. And just every time we do it, it really helps. That's part of the trauma-informed approach. But it's actually, again, that's not been innovated in the United States. And that I think is also very cool, right? Again, it's
Mhm.
um, the same way that our human needs are universal, right? Early childhood development needs and learning goals are actually also universal. And so there's a lot of lessons and learnings out there. And for us, it's just so amazing to share those across different cultures and contexts.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that because it is amazing how much we can learn from other people
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Yes.
And yeah, yeah. That's so cool. That is really cool. And you do play-based learning.
Hmm.
So talk about play-based learning.
Thank you. Yeah. I think this is where there's a lot of there's a lot of data actually and a lot of research that has gone into how children learn best, right? And there's been a lot of different, I mean, for anyone who out there who is maybe a teacher or even has, kids or grandkids in school, we've done phonics and non-phonics and, we look at this, science of learning. I mean, there's a lot of research out there in terms of how the brain works and how we can learn new things and how we can remember them. And what's fun is that I think there's a real consensus now is that rote memorization and learning is only for short term, right? It is not for concept mastery, and it actually doesn't serve students or society long term because it doesn't help us problem solve. It doesn't, there's no creativity. And so the move internationally and in the United States is around away from rote memorization toward play-based learning, toward problem-solving activities, toward, really bringing in imagination and creativity, asking open-ended questions, not just, right or wrong questions. And again, when we help teachers have that language, both the mindsets, so first it's the theory in terms of why this is important and why it works. And then, again, RISE is, I think, probably our key deliverable, right, for teachers, the thing that we offer teachers is moving from the theory into the practice. So how do we learn and know that play-based learning works? And then how do we actually do it in a classroom? I've been a teacher myself, right? You can go to a training on a weekend. It is really hard to then flip the script on Monday. The same kids walk in, right? One kid is being distractive, other kids are late. You have 45 minutes to cram something in, right? It is really hard to change the way we teach. And so what we do again is help the teachers give those tools. And we don't just train, we also coach and model. And so we go into a teacher's class and we might do, again, when I say we, it will be our local team, right? So in Haiti, or in Ethiopia, it would be the local training team. So someone would have gone to a training over the weekend, and that first Monday, there will be a staff member who's there who introduces the toy or introduces the concept, introduces the music, and they will do it. Everything is based on play. And what happens is that the teachers see their students respond so differently. And that's when we get the buy-in from the teachers. And that's when we get that aha moment of like, that, that kid who I kind of see as difficult or really gives me a hard time and they can never sit still. Maybe they just need to move more,
Mm.
right? Like maybe it's not that they're trying to be bad, it's that like their body can't sit still for 6 hours a day. And so when we see them through play and we see that child really engaging in their learning, again, I always think of play-based learning as like the how, not the what. Play-based learning is not the goal, right? There's a lot of play-based learning out there. That's great. It's the reason it's magical is because it's how children learn best, but it's also how children want to learn.
Mm.
And so it again, it's theirs. It's their academic journey, it's their school time. We see the difference of not being, we'll go into a school and do introductory meetings. We'll have been there for 3 months. You see the kids like running to school, right? We
Mm.
see higher attendance. We see kids arriving on time. We see less teacher burnout. Like the schools are more joyful and more fun, and you hear it as soon as you arrive, and you're like, "Is this the same school I was just at 3 months ago?" It's like it comes alive. And so again, there's so much, we didn't invent play. Play's always been there. We just kind of forgot about it. Right. And so it's like coming back to the most basic things of how humans learn best. And I always think like, I'm sure you do, right? Like I'm sure we all do. Like, what is it Wordle? Is it a crossword? Is it a board game? Like we have fun playing, right? Tennis, pickleball, whatever it is we're doing, like it's a game. Like we as adults also like play. But when we label play for children as frivolous or as fun or as recess, or we somehow divorce it as it's like it's only free play. Free play is important because that's where there's a lot of imagination and leadership and conflict resolution and all those other pieces. That's really important. But the play is also learning.
Mm.
And so that if once we get that into a school culture and the teachers are really embracing it, that's where we see the difference in learning outcomes, right? And we see, dropouts rate really drop. And so for me, yeah, play-based learning is again, it's a tool we've always had, but when we really understand the power of it, the sky is the limit in terms of our impact.
Yeah, wow, that's so cool. And that's international. That's everywhere.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
not just for a certain culture. That is
Everyone.
everywhere
Yeah.
because people are people all over the
Yep,
world.
exactly.
Kids are
Right.
kids all over the
Yep,
world.
exactly.
And yeah, and the way we learn.
Yes.
And there's been a lot of talk about people learn different ways and whatever, but there's also some universality to it
Yes.
in learning. And
Yes.
so that's what you bring. And at the same time, dealing with trauma, dealing
Right.
with kids and how are they going to handle trauma in the future? How are they handling the trauma that they're in right now? And so that adds a whole different element to.
Yes. Yeah. And again, this is where um it's been so fun to learn from my colleagues and the experts, and again that if you walk into any speech language pathologist's office anywhere in the world, they will welcome the child. They will introduce themselves. They will set the expectations, right? Will explain what's going to happen. And then in almost all cases, they will introduce a toy it's like a peace offering. It's like an opening because it's the way that children can start to engage, right? So most children are not going to do adult like eye contact with an adult that they don't know. That's actually good, right? That's a good, safe behavior, right? That's a very okay, normal thing to. They might not introduce themselves, they might not engage, they might not feel comfortable, right? This person is a stranger. I don't yet know them. I'm in a different place. This is not routine, right? it could also be a doctor's office, right? There again, it's why there are toys at dentist's office. And again, it's like, I mean, we do all these things all the time, right, to help children just again kind of relax. And so when a child is really traumatized, there's a young boy in Ukraine that our team has been working really closely with, named Stanislav. His father's on the front lines. His mom has been displaced. He's from Eastern Ukraine. He's now in Western Ukraine. Different, like, he was speaking Russian. Now he's supposed to be speaking Ukrainian. Very different culturally, East and West Ukraine. Um, he has a lot of trauma. He really misses his father. Like, he is not doing well. He walks into our program and he goes straight under the table.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the room, not engaging. His mom is there desperate for him to engage. He has shut off at home. Like, she is holding so much. And she also now sees the trauma in her child. And so her own confidence in her parenting, right? I mean, everything is broken. So she finds out about a program. She brings her child to the program. Um, and it took several weeks. Like, and the staff again are so well trained and they're so well versed in this and they have so much experience where they will offer a toy, right? No pressure. Children are not called on, right? There's no Socratic method. Children are not put on the spot. They are not isolated. They're not, labeled as bad. They're just understood. And slowly but surely, in every context that we work, a Stanislav will take a ball and start to play with himself, start to play with that. And at some point, right, he might roll it to another child, right? And the toy again becomes the peace offering. It becomes the way that a child can start to open up and come out of their shell. It usually won't happen on the first day, it usually won't happen in the first week, right? But over that time, and so everything that we do is it has this trauma informed lens because we always think like we don't know what happened before school, right? We don't know what happened last night at home. We don't know that fight that they witnessed their parents have, right? We have no idea what's happened when the child enters the classroom, but we know that we can help every child overcome their developmental milestones and be able to be prepared to school through this lens. So for us, it's the trauma informed lens plus the play based learning, which again allows every child, no matter what they're going through, again, to have a path to engage. And again, it's Stanislav, it's Chien in Vietnam, who I was just hearing about a very similar story. He used to only whisper, and now he really has found his voice. And that's our role, right? Is to help children really find their voice and get their footing. Their parents get their confidence back as a parent. The parent-child bonding happens again and then they can have that childhood that you and I spoke about.
Oh, oh my gosh, that's so cool. One of the things as you're talking that is hitting me is that these kids come in at whatever age they come in,
Yeah,
4 years old, 5 years old, whatever age they come in, and it's not too late for them.
right, exactly. Yes. And I mentioned, I used to work with in politics and then with youth organizing and I would see these 18-year-olds who would come in and they were so mad, right? They had so much anger because of what had happened to them and how they had been treated. And it was so hard, right? It took so much time to try and break through those walls. With a 3 or 4 or 5 and 6 year old, like they can also be mad or scared, right? They can, I mean, those emotions are big, right? And they do not know how to handle them. But our ability to help connect with that child can actually be pretty quick. It's usually a matter of weeks. In Ukraine, for example, 52% of parents self-report and self-identify that their child who may have walked in nonverbal, traumatized, shut down, not engaging, can now handle their emotions, talk about their emotions, reconnect with their peers, reconnect with their adults. And that's only after 3 months of programming. We offer an entire year.
Wow.
And so to think about how quick that can happen, and then the recovery and that, and then you can do the academic catch up, right? So yeah, so again, coming back to like there are so many things that we can do. Um, for us, it's, I mean, literally, and a year of programming is $50 per child.
Mm.
So, if we
An
think
entire year of
an
programming.
entire year of programming, and that's global, that's like a global average, right? So there's obviously some variance, but globally, right, $50 a year for programming, like we can do this, right? Like we can really help transform the life of a child for not that much money and also for not that much of a burden on ourselves. And so, again, I could just keep coming back to, for those of us who care deeply, and who are concerned about the state of the world and who, think about future generations and AI and all the things that are coming, it's like whatever it is, like what do people need? What skills do they need? They need social emotional skills, right? And they need foundational communication skills,
Mm. Mhm.
problem solving, creativity, imagination, all of that they can get in kindergarten, right? We can actually offer that. And so, again, it moves us from like this hopelessness and this, you know, um, passive, right? Kind of like helpless to be like, oh yeah, like we can do this. We got this, right? We're actually in control. It's not someone else dictating our lives. Like we can do this.
Mm, I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh, I love what you do. I love that you know so much about it. That the foundation of the organization, the wisdom that was seeded into your organization and passed along is phenomenal. I mean, the great doctor and what she accomplished is amazing. And
Yeah.
that you honor that too. I love that. And all the stuff that you're doing now. And yeah, like you mentioned, I've been to Haiti a lot. I've been to Burkina Faso, to Kenya, to Zambia, to you name it. I've been to a lot of different places with a lot of tough situations. Haiti is by far the hardest country I've ever worked in.
Yeah.
And to think that you're doing this in Haiti for kids in Haiti, knowing what education and lack of education is like in Haiti in general. And I love what you do. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
everything that you do. I just
Thank you, Tim.
so
Yeah.
appreciate, you
No,
know.
and I appreciate, I mean, you are someone who lives your values, right? And we started this conversation thinking about our childhood and our values and kind of like universality and humanity. And you really embody that personally. It's been so fun to get to know you and to now like hear the conversations that you're bringing into the world. And the fact that you are going out of your comfort zone and going to, a place like Haiti, which I mean, it's on our doorstep, but right, most Americans would never consider that. And that's okay. Like we don't all have to go there, but
Mhm.
we can care, right? And we can say, a child in Haiti deserves to have education and joy and, the ability to thrive, as does a child in, Bulgaria or Ethiopia or Kenya or Vietnam and in Baltimore and in the Bronx and in other places that we aren't in.
Mhm.
Um, and so, again, it's yeah, that equity and that I think just that ability to bring, lightness and joy into the world, is something you do. And I'm just really grateful to have had this conversation and also to be able to do this work.
Yeah, well, you're great at it. And in talking to like people on your board, they have so much appreciation for you. And it does come from, kind of where our conversation started in a way, like every day leads you to today. So all the things that you've been through, all the places you've lived and where you've grown and changed and evolved and whatever brought you to today, which makes you the perfect person to be running this organization and doing such a great job of it. And a million kids, that is a high number, but I do not doubt for a minute that you're going to achieve it and beyond. And so how can people get involved? How can people help you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, certainly. I appreciate it. So our website is simple. It's just rise-children.org. So certainly visiting our website, learning more about the work. I would invite you to say hello and, sign up for our e-newsletter. I think that would be the first step is just, kind of letting us know that you might be interested. We have volunteer opportunities. We have lots of ways to get engaged. Of course, people can sponsor a child and, help do that work. But as I mentioned, our name is new. So Rise Alliance for Children is a new name for us. But we have been going for nearly 30 years. So yeah, for people to, who want to do something, who are passionate about kids and future generations, either in their own community or internationally, please get in touch. We'd love to hear about you and see if we can make some more magic happen.
That's so great. And people can sponsor a child.
For sure. Yeah. So as I mentioned, it's essentially $50 for a year of programming. We have a lot of people who like to do monthly donations. And so whether that's, $5 a month or $50 a month, every dollar counts because it's every child counts.
Mhm.
And that is our North Star.
Yeah. So if you did $50 a month, basically you're sponsoring 12 kids
Yes.
for at $50,
Every year.
which
Yep.
is, 2 cups of Starbucks,
Yes,
basically.
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. It's like nothing. Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
open your couch cushions and you probably will find
Yeah.
the amount of
Yes.
money there,
Yeah.
right? Or in between the seats in your car.
Yeah,
Like
and we love, yeah, I mean, our monthly donors, like we really think of them as our sustainers, right? It's the most sustainable way that you can give to an organization and really help an organization plan and be able to say yes, right? Like, yes, there is a community, and yes, there is a school that wants to be trained. Yes, there is this referral, right, for another community that really needs it. And so our ability to say yes is knowing that we have people that are on this journey with us, right? They are our partners. It's not passive donors. It's, again, people, if a donation is something you are actively doing to change the world. And so we are so grateful for anyone, who wants to be part of this in any way that they can.
Yeah, well, and knowing you and knowing the organization, I also know that you're not getting rich, that the
Oh,
money goes to the programs, that it goes where it needs to
yeah,
go,
for
and
sure.
it's helping
Yes.
people, right?
Yeah.
Because some people can be jaded by
Yes, I
giving, how
understand.
do I know that it's the right,
Yeah,
how do I know what they're doing with my money? You guys are just open. Like
yeah,
this is where the money goes. This is what it
for
is.
sure.
Like, there's no questions. There's no reading between the lines.
Yes,
You just put it
exactly.
out there and
No, of
people are
course.
aware. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I agree. I mean, I've worked at nonprofits, kind of big and small. Um, and personally, I actually think that like the small to medium nonprofits are really where you like they're punching above their weight.
Mhm.
It's like low cost, high impact, really high return on investment. They're big enough to have big impact, right? And to be able to find some of the efficiencies that happen when you start to scale. But they're small enough, right? I mean, we are very nimble, very resourceful, really scrappy. And so, that we're kind of in that perfect balance. So, again, whether it's our organization or another organization, I do think that's a great sweet spot for donors because there's a lot of transparency. I mean, certainly everything is on our website, everything is open. We're, highest rated on all the charitable organizations. And so, yeah, but again, that's part of our values. So again, find an organization that meets your values and really lives them and meets your levels and standards of transparency, and you will not be disappointed.
Yeah. I love it. And I encourage everybody. I know this organization. I know Mara. If you trust me, please trust me, but trust that this is absolutely true. Like you give money, the impact that it's going to have far exceeds the impact that can happen other places. Like this organization is legit. It's for real. It's doing things. It's on the ground. It's working with people. And it's not just the kids that benefit from it. The parents benefit from it. The teachers benefit from it. The communities benefit from it. Everybody they touch in the future benefits from it. Like it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. Like it just builds and builds and builds. And so if you're able to get on and give $25 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever. Like Mara even said, $5 a month, anything. If you're able to do that, I promise you the impact that that money will have is so much greater than you can possibly imagine. And Mara, I'm so grateful for what you do. And
Thank you.
I, for one, am going on the website today and committing to a monthly
Yes.
donation.
Thank
And
you,
I
Kim.
hope other people do too, because you're there and you're doing it and you're changing lives. And thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you. You too. Well, this is, yeah, this, your podcast, Love Is, right? This is it. So thank you. You are such a light in this world, and it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, well, it's such a pleasure knowing you, calling you friend, having
Yeah.
you here. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you everybody for tuning in with us today. And if you know somebody who could benefit from hearing this, please pass it on because this is something that is for everyone. And no matter what you do in the world, do something. You know, if it's Rise, if what you've heard today, you're like, oh yeah, man, I want to be involved in this organization. I want to give. I want to do what I can. Then contact them. Rise-children.org. So easy. If it's on something locally, your local soup kitchen, whatever it happens to be, you want to work with the homeless, you want to go read in the elementary school, your kids' school, your grandkids' school, but do something. If we all did something, the world would be such a better place. So let's all do our part. Let's all do something to help. And for some people, you're so busy, you can't go volunteer, but you have resources that you can give. And that is so needed and so effective. So I just encourage you, pass this episode on, and I encourage you to do something to help the world. It will not only change other people's lives, it will change your own. I guarantee it will change your own. And until we see each other again, I just pray that you keep your heart open and you live your love loud.